Good morning and welcome to the Videogamekarp channel. I have something special for you today. I'm going to be doing a mobility review of the 11 Tier 10 medium tanks in World of Tanks. Now, I've designed a scoring system. I'm into statistics and I'm a financial planner. I like this sort of stuff. So the scoring system's a little bit complex, but it allows for the most accurate overall rating of the tanks in a specific area. Without going into it too much, just know that the top tank in a category will score the maximum amount of points, which is 100 points for a category. Depending on how close the second best in the category is, will depend on his score. So an example is that the fastest tank, if it's only 1 kilometer faster than the second, then the second tank will score a number closer to 100, maybe in the high 90s. But if the second tank is way slower, it will score a lot lower. So it does that further and further down the line too. So therefore, each category, the tanks are compared directly to the best in the class, which exposes any glaring weaknesses and shows it in the overall score. But let's get started and I'll show you what I mean. So we'll start with, out of the 11 tanks, this is the worst for my mobility rating. This is 11th. So I'll go over it. Its top speed is the second slowest with 45 kilometers per hour. It has the 7th in horsepower to ton ratio, and which is only 16.97. I'll put these statistics up on the screen when I edit the video. And the traverse speed is tied for 4th place with 2 other tanks at 50 degrees per second. So the overall score for this tank is, for speed, it gets 56 out of 100. For horsepower to ton ratio, it gets 44 out of 100. Traverse speed is 83 out of 100, which gives it a total score of 183 out of 300. And if you divide both numbers by 3 so that you can get a rating out of 100, and then you just round up or down, then that gives you a total score of 61 out of 100 for the US tank, the M48A1 pattern. Now, the next, that's this guy here. Now, this is one of those situations where the glaring weakness makes it have such a low score. This has the worst top speed out of any Tier 10 medium tank at 40 kilometers per hour. This is like 25 kilometers slower than the fastest tanks. So it is very, very poor. It has the 3rd highest horsepower to ton ratio at 20.25, and it's also tied, as I said before, it's tied 4th in traverse speed with 50 degrees per second. But unfortunately for this, the speed, it being so much slower than the fastest tank, hurts it in the speed score. So for speed, it gets 44 out of 100. The horsepower to ton ratio gets 60 out of 100. And the traverse speed, again, is 83 out of 100, giving this a total score of 187 out of 300. That divided gives you 62 out of 100. So the next in line is, coming in at number 9, is the Chinese tank, the 121. So this tank has the third fastest top speed, which would make it seem like it should be higher up in the mobility. But unfortunately, to go along with the third fastest top speed, it has the worst horsepower to ton ratio of any medium tank in Tier 10 of 14.87, which is absolutely abysmal. It is basically half of the top tanks. So this thing has a lot of trouble accelerating, and it is again tied for fourth in traverse speed with 50 degrees per second. The speed score that this one gets is 80 out of 100. The horsepower to ton, being the worst, is 34 out of 100, and the traverse speed again is 83 out of 100, giving it a total score of 197 out of 300. Divide them both by 3 and you get 66 out of 100 for this tank. This guy's got a top speed of 50 kilometers per hour, which is the 6th best in category, so it's a bit below mid-range. It has the second worst horsepower to ton ratio, with a slight improvement over the Chinese tank with 15.68 horsepower to ton. Now, it has the best traverse speed of 56 degrees per second. But because the traverse category is pretty close, the scores don't vary a huge amount for the traverse category. So the Russian T62A for speed is 67 out of 100, horsepower to ton is 40 out of 100, being the second worst, and traverse, being the best, is 100 out of 100. Gives it a total score of 207 out of 300, or 69 out of 100. Next up the list is another Russian tank, the Object 430. Now this guy has a top speed of 55 kilometers per hour, which is mid-range for the Tier 10 medium tanks. It has the 8th best, which is well below mid-range for horsepower to ton ratio, and it has the 3rd best traverse speed with 52 degrees per second. The top speed is 55, the horsepower to ton is 16.43, and the traverse is 52. Now, the scores for the Object 430 are, for speed is 78 out of 100, horsepower to ton is 42 out of 100, only slightly better than the T62, and the traverse speed is 89 out of 100, giving it a total score of 209 out of 300, so 70 out of 100. Going up to another tank that scores the same overall score, the German E50M. What gets this guy the same score is this is a tank that is mobile because it has the second highest top speed of any medium tank. So it has 60 kilometers per hour, but it's mid-range for horsepower to ton with 19.26 horsepower to ton ratio, and it's second last in traverse with only 44 degrees per second, which isn't great. So the overall scores for the E50, for speed being the second fastest, it gets 89 out of 100, horsepower to ton is 55 out of 100, traverse is 66 out of 100, which gives it an overall 210 or 70 out of 100. Going further up the list again to the object 140 is mid-range for top speed with 55 kilometers per hour. It is the 9th, so the 3rd worst horsepower to ton ratio of 16.11, which is quite typical for the Russian tanks in this tier. And it has the 2nd best traverse speed of 54 degrees per second. The scoring for this guy is speed 78 out of 100, horsepower to ton is 40 out of 100, and traverse speed is 94 out of 100, giving a total score of 212 or 71 out of 100. Now, a bit of a jump up is the first tank that's reliable in every category, and that is the Japanese tank, the STB-1. So we're getting into the far more mobile tanks now. Now the STB-1 has a top speed of 53 kilometers per hour, which is mid-range, but it has the 4th best horsepower to ton ratio with 20.05, and it has the 3rd best traverse speed with 52 degrees per second. Now, the scoring for the STB is 73 out of 100 for speed, horsepower to ton is 59, and traverse is 89, giving a total of 221 or 73 out of 100. Now, a big jump up from this, as you would expect, which is typical of French tanks, is the first of the French tanks, the AMX 30B. Now this tank is tied for the fastest in tier. It has 65 kilometers per hour, it's the top speed. It is the 5th best with horsepower to ton ratio of 20 horsepower to ton, only slightly lower than the Japanese tank, and it has the 5th best traverse speed of 48 degrees per second. So the speed score for the AMX is 100, being the fastest. The horsepower to ton ratio is 59 out of 100. Traverse speed is 77, giving it a total score of 236 or 79 out of 100. Next up the line is the German tank, which is in 2nd place, and that is the Leopard 1. This thing's very lightly armoured, which explains why it's so fast. This is tied for number 1 with 65 kilometers per hour. It is 2nd best with horsepower to ton ratio of 20.75, which again is only a slight improvement over the other ones in this category. And the traverse speed of 54 is the 2nd best. So the overall scores for the German Leopard is 100 for speed, being the fastest, 62 for horsepower to ton, and 94 for traverse speed, giving it a total score of 256 or 85 out of 100. Now in first place, that leaves the Batchat, the other French medium tank. Now what gives this guy the highest score out of anyone is not only the top speed, which is the fastest in tier, along with the last 2 tanks we looked at with 65 kilometers per hour, but what gives it the number 1 title is the horsepower to ton ratio is 8 horsepower higher than any other tank, any other medium tank. It jumps from 20 with the German Leopard 1 to 28.48 with the Top Gun on the Batchat. which is crazy. So it is by far the best in category for horsepower to ton ratio. On the flip side to that, it is the worst for traverse speed, which is unfortunate. It has the traverse speed of 42 degrees per second. Now overall scoring for the Batchat is 100 out of 100 for speed, 100 out of 100 for hit points, by far. And this is why, because it is way, way, way better than anyone else, the Leopard only got 62 for being second best in horsepower to ton. So the horsepower to ton is 100, and the Traverse, being the worst, is 60 out of 100, giving it a total score of 260 or 87 out of 100 overall. Now, I hope that these formulas, well, I haven't even told you the formulas, but I hope that this wasn't too confusing. I promise you that I've redone this multiple times and I've checked over it a lot, and it is accurate information. And the way that I've scored it is, in my opinion, the most reasonable overall scores, just because if something is extremely outstanding in a category, then the other tanks should be compared to that, because if, say in this case, the UK FV4202, the one that was the worst speed, it being 25 kilometers per hour slower than the top three tanks, it should not be high up in the ratings. It should be penalized for being so slow. So that's why I've done the ratings the way I am. I think that it will be the most accurate way to do it, and I think that once I start doing the guns, the armor, and the mobility, plus the view and signal range together, so once I get the whole package and I do all of this, and then I have the best overall in each tier, I think that that will be very accurate to what the best tanks in each tier overall for a general style of play are going to be. So if you enjoy this, then let me know, or give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll make more. If you think that it's too overdone and that you don't want to see the other reviews, then that's fine. I will keep it to myself. Alright, thanks guys.